Hello, everybody, and it's great to see you again. My name is Masco Hall. I'm the Global Director of Solutions Engineering here at Iru, and I've been with Iru for 5 years. Today, I'm joined by someone who's been living a problem around their organization where they're trying to build a stack that runs itself in a very real way. And I'm going to let him introduce who he is. So I'll pass it over to Hayden. Hayden, please give us a quick introduction.
Hey everyone, I'm Hayden. I am the lead for IT Ops, Security and ESG over here at Gorilla. I've been working with Iru for the last 6 years or so. So Gorilla is my third implementation of Iru at the moment.
Thank you, Hayden. I'm so excited to have you here. And thank you for being a valuable and valued customer to us and coming back each and every time. I want to talk a little bit about that concept of making it sustainable and going from a reactive to more of an intentional model. So you mentioned you're carrying IT. I think you also are doing security and some compliance all at the same time. What is the actual approach that you're taking to make it sustainable and not just a day-to-day like theory or something that is like a pipe dream?
Yeah, so for me, as somebody typically who wears a lot of hats in one place, time is usually the gold in value of what I don't have. So typically I like to build things and our systems and IT and tech stack around making it run itself. And Iru plays a massive part in that. So usually when I arrive somewhere, usually Iru isn't there and I might be dealing with maybe no MDM at all, or maybe a couple of other MDMs, which, for example, we moved from Jam to Iru here at Gorilla and previously at another company. And Jamf is great, but I think requires some in-house expertise and a lot of overhead to keep that moving and keep all the components moving together, as where Iru plays a big part in having that set and forget kind of methodology I like to apply to all different areas where I'm building systems. I don't usually have a lot of time to make sure that Chrome update was pushed out to everybody, or making sure that I keep on top of OS updates and having a seamless onboarding experience as well. That's always something I find that Iru hasn't really been able to beat so far, or has been able to beat, sorry, that doesn't sound correct, where the user takes out the laptop, is already integrated into our SSO, and we have that seamless experience of them signing in, everything's installed, everything's done, as where before a new person could start. And because we're typically I work in like global companies where people are remote, we want that experience to be solid from the get-go. Otherwise, they could be sitting there for a while and not having what they need and waiting for kind of errors to clear or waiting for me to be available so I can help them. So I set up that methodology where I can set that once and then that kind of moves along and all the automation's done for me and it's a slick experience for the users.
Of that. Going back into that mind shift that you're speaking about, right? You made it sound like it was a very reactionary role in the past where you were just being more reactive and you were moving into this proactive mindset. When did this shift happen? And was there like a breaking point, or was there something that frustrated you enough to where you're like, this needs to happen? I'm done dealing with this reactive mindset.
Yeah, I think typically, especially as the world moves more into AI and more technology is advancing, I don't really have a lot of time to deal with like more traditional IT in terms of dealing with devices, updates, patching, having to do big investigations when like a vulnerability has popped up or something's been detected. I need a platform where I can just quickly go in and look at that. So that was, I guess, the point for me in the last few years is that a lot of my time is now required to be more of a business partner internally and making sure people have got the tools that they need, the AI capabilities that they need, as well as me having time to also, I guess, explore, because I think we're all, I guess, trying to move as quickly as everything is developing at the same time. I think a lot of this is new to us as well, even as IT admins and IT professionals. Sometimes we wake up one day and there's been a whole new advancement in Claude or with OpenAI, and someone wants this and someone wants that. So I think that became the point to me where I was like, okay, as a singular person managing kind of IT for an organization, I now need tools that takes the traditional parts away from me as much as possible so I can focus on delivering value to people and making sure we're keeping up.
Yeah. And automation, I think to your point, is super important, right? Because it's one of those things where as we continue moving forward in time, things are just getting not necessarily more complex, but more and more is being added to an individual's plate, right? Like we mentioned with you as an example, you're handling not just endpoint, but you're also doing things around compliance and security. And you need probably more time in your day. And there's not necessarily a way of inserting that as much these days, right? It's just you're given it a certain amount of time and you have to accomplish what you need to accomplish. On the back of that, you talk about this principle of automation so you can focus on what actually needs to be looked at, right, by you. How do you decide what falls into which bucket? Like, how do you decide what is prioritized and in what order?
In terms of what kind of pops up within, you know, my priorities overall, is it as like a leader or?
Yeah, just around like maybe automating as an example as well. Hey, I want to make sure like I'm looking and focusing on this, right? We talk about Eru. Eru is probably, I'm assuming from your perspective, since you've brought it into multiple places now, it's one of the quickest check boxes you can get to. But how do you prioritize beyond that?
Yeah. Yeah. There's many elements that I've tackled around how, yeah, Iru plays a part in kind of the broader estate of how we're automating things. For example, user lifecycle as well. So we have sits in this chain of things that happen when we get a new person joining or have them, they start in our ATS when they're applying for the job. They go into the HRIS, that goes into Okta. Okta talks to Iru. Then we have all of the mappings where they get all of the things they need for their device. We also work with an external company called Fleet, which is not the MDM. There's another Fleet who does labeled device shipping and things. So that kind of links in and sends devices out to people where they are. And then that kind of links in with the Aero experience when they join. And then further on, I've got an AN built into the Iru API as well. So if we're getting mainly around vulnerabilities and threats that pop up, I have those kind of in a queue within our Zendesk setup. So I can go in and make sure that those are dealt with and those are tracked, which also feeds into a lot of our ISO compliance as well and SOC 2, because we need to demonstrate that we're
Yeah.
logging and reading and showing that we've actioned those things. And we have a platform that can do that as well as us interacting and solving them. So I guess for the user lifecycle of view, that's, yeah, a big part of what I've been doing here to maximize my time as well as offboarding as well. Yeah.
Love that. I love it. I think it's super important nowadays, right? To make sure that you're able to maximize your time across everything that you have responsibilities on to make sure you touch things and you're able to still accomplish what you're looking for. As far as like automation, where are maybe some things that you want to keep like a human touch involved instead of automations? I'm curious, is that something you've thought about ever or looked at?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm very passionate about a user's first day or a person's first day at any company. I think it's like the most important day for anyone. As much as I get told that I shouldn't do this because it's not a very scalable thing that as a business grows, and there is a point where I have to stop doing it. But I tend to, as the IT leader, like to meet everybody on their first day, even though things are automated and I have had people, obviously people start when I'm away and I'm not here and people are like, oh, it was actually super easy without you still, which is great. But I still feel like like a human interaction when you get started to be like, hey, this is me. I think there's a good balance of where we can automate things and then also where AI can step in and help free up time. But then there's also that kind of human side. I think also around like compliance stuff as well. I don't think we're quite there yet. At least maybe it's a personal thing from my point of view of not feeling safe enough to give it into the hands of an automation or a kind of an AI thing. Like it definitely assists me in making sure. But I think when you're a regulated business that, you rely on SOC 2 and ISO to do what you do, and your customers rely on you to be secure, you need to have that human in the loop part. Even if you are automating everything, I think there's always places where I like to jump in and make sure that things are still working and being done.
Yeah, you go from let me check everything from start to finish to more of a spot check or an audit type of situation, right? Where now, hey, instead of maybe spending 3, 4 hours on this and running through it from start to finish, maybe if I spend the first 15 or 20 minutes of my day, just do quick audits and checks on things. So do you feel that's what gives you the ability to be comfortable with a lot of these automations that you're putting trust into? It's, hey, I'm just going to spot check, make sure everything is good. Is that kind of what you rely on?
Yeah, at the moment, that's what I'm doing. I'm a big user of 8am, which is where a lot of our automations is happening. So there we can check. I've built like log dashboards, and I can go in there and check and see like what activity is happening and what's happening where, and where like things are like handing off to each other, and making sure that the integrity of things are following through the whole workflow. And I think it's nice because I was an early adopter of NAN and platforms like that where you're automating, and also over time it gets better. So you might not have to do it so much. Maybe in 2, 3 years time, maybe I won't have to do it at all. I mean, that concept in my brain doesn't make sense yet, but I think it kind of goes back to what I said earlier with us as technology leaders. I think there's like a cultural piece to get over as well with AI, and understanding how that kind of affects our daily role and how we interact with systems in a new way as well.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I'm gonna shift a little bit, still sticking with optimization of managing devices and things like that. But you mentioned you've implemented Era now across multiple organizations. I think it's 4 in total since you started looking at us back in 2019. When you walk into a new environment or a new place historically, now that you've done it a few times, what do you first set up and why? Like, why is that usually the first thing you start to look at?
Yeah, I think usually when I walk into a new place, my first thing is I love to do like a listening tour and speak to people, speak to leaders of departments, speak with people that are on the ground, and find out what's bothering you the most, what's costing you so much, the most time, what's making your job hard to do in terms of tech and IT, and what's blocking you at the moment. And then I think also usually after a month or so, you get a good feel of that once you've also sitting back and just monitoring and see how things are going as well. I don't like to jump in straight away and try and fix things unless something is like blowing. But 9 times out of 10, usually device management is always a problem unless it hasn't had time spent on it. So usually majority of the tickets when I first go anywhere is I've done like a lot of analytics in places where I've went where we categorize. Also, a lot of places don't have a ticket system when I go, or like a place to track requests and things like that where people are asking. So that's the first thing I put in place, and then that allows me to start analyzing what are the biggest problems. And usually I can go back in maybe 6 months after I've been there and see like that detraction of like device issues go down as soon as we get an MDM solution that works, usually Iru. And yeah, usually it is spending time chasing people for making sure you install that update, or they saying like, oh, this software hasn't deployed to my device properly and it's corrupted and I don't know how to install it, and I have to spend time with them removing the files. And it's things now that I wouldn't even dream of spending any time on. Like the thought of me having to like go on someone's device and actually install something, I'm like, the biggest waste of time I can ever think of. Thanks to kind of other tools like Eru that have come in and take care of that for me. Yeah, that's usually the biggest thing that usually pops up is device management and how they're managed, patches,
Yeah.
software updates, onboarding is usually like the biggest headache. Usually in any organization, onboarding in many different elements is quite hard to get right, even besides IT stuff. So usually I try to like be like, let me just take that part away from me so we can focus on like getting the other onboarding elements right for the new employee or the.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. As a former admin as well, I think of the organizations that I've moved in between, and usually the first thing I've always looked at is like automating that onboarding piece, right? Using Apple's automated device enrollment piece where you can do the zero touch. And I really love the simplicity of how Eru has built it. But beyond that, I love how kind of Apple's workflow goes and really removes you to your point, right? I don't have to sit with that end user every time somebody's onboarding to get them to install an app or to do things or to walk them through things. It's getting that going. And I love that. What does the day one look like for you, your new hire? I'm curious. I'm talking here about zero touch and how much I appreciate. I'd love to hear how you've implemented it, if anything.
Yeah. So usually day one new hire, usually they're always remote. So as I mentioned earlier, we have a partner that we use called Fleet, and they are a device shipping management company. So we lease them from them, but they also make sure that they get to where they need to be because we are an international business. They're able to manage logistics anywhere, which is great for me because sometimes we might have employed someone in a territory that I've never dealt with before and having to like Google what shipping company do I use to get it here, and you have to worry about import taxes, that kind of stuff, and they do all of that. So that's like the biggest challenge is getting a device to them or buying it in their territory and having it still linked to us and going to our ABM or BM now. What was it?
AB,
Yeah.
AB.
Then, yeah, usually that is then the first day is opening the laptop, connecting to the Wi-Fi. Iru takes over in terms of we have a branded screen, we have all the apps installing, all the configuration. They log in and they bind their account with Okta. And then we also have a customized end screen. So you can put like the links and the apps of things they might want to go to next. And we have their onboarding guide there, which is built in Notion. So from the minute the install's done, they can click and go straight into their onboarding guide, which people team build, and they can follow the steps of what their first day looks like, what their first week looks like, what meetings they're going to have in their first week. So that kind of is a kind of an experience that we build for the person. We like to call it an experience rather than a process.
Yep.
And yeah, from then usually I meet them and then have a conversation with them about systems. And a lot of people ask what Iru is as well. Because yeah, they have the little like jellyfish in the corner. They're like, what's that? As well as like the other tech stack that we have in the business and how all of that works too. That's like the typical onboarding experience. When it goes well, yeah, usually in terms of tech, always goes good, but in terms of getting devices to people, not always. But
Yeah.
just global logistics, never an easy thing to manage.
Yeah. One of our audience members asked a question about what does offboarding look like for Iru. Instead of me saying in general, I'd love for you to answer your version of what offboarding looks like. And then I have a follow-up question from a customer, and I can help answer this one a little bit based on what we're talking through. But let's start with the offboarding one. What does offboarding look like with you using Iru today?
Yeah, offboarding for us usually is actually something I'm testing at the moment to optimize that, depending what kind of offboarding it is. Sometimes we get usual offboarding where someone's decided to leave and that's usual. They have their last day, it's no drama. And then sometimes you get the offboardings where it's cut it now. Either way, Iru comes in very handy in both of those scenarios. So usually we start with device lock. So Iru has a feature where you can go on the device and it locks it and it goes black with a code cut out straight away, which is really useful because sometimes when you locking accounts down from Okta point of view or like from Google, sometimes the caches don't clear quite in time. They still might have a few minutes where they can do something or get data out, something like that. So blocking the device straight away so they can't get there is the first stage that we do. And at the moment, I'm working on a workflow with NAN, which I'm not really succeeding with. But usually, the original way I got NAN to work was through the Iru support team helped me with the API setup. So I might just need to reach out to them again. But my goal is to hopefully have like a zero touch offboarding process as well. So from the minute that HR kind of offboards someone in our HRIS, that follows through to Okta, then that will trigger the device to lock in Iru, but it's still working. I've had a few successful tests, but at the moment it's manual, but I think I'll get to a place where it will be like a full one click button kills everything.
Perfect. Yeah. The attendee asked a follow-up question. I'm just going to answer it real quick. So the question is, what about cloud accounts like Salesforce, MS licenses, and other access that you need to block when somebody offboards? In reality, these usually sit behind an IDP, like an Okta that Hayden mentioned. And so the idea is that once the leader removes that user's ability to log in, then they'll no longer be able to log in. Now, certain IDPs like Okta has something called workflows, which I think is similar to what Hayden's using with the NAN piece, where he's using that to trigger actions within Eru, right? As an example, if somebody authenticates the first time with Okta, you can then have it automatically assign a device to a user. And if you offboard them on the Okta side, you can have them also offboarded directly into the Eru side. So depends on kind of what you're looking to do. And that leads me into that second question that I was mentioning, where it's, can you show some examples of tech stacks that run themselves? And it's really going to be different based on each and every organization and how you build this and how you decide to do it. Right? As an example, with Hayden, he has that company called Fleet where they can ship out devices, they can do certain things. So the moment he starts an onboarding, he has certain triggers that can then take action going forward. And Hayden, I'd love to hear from you how that's working for you today.
Yeah, I think Fleet, it plays a small kind of a part of how the tech stack is running itself. I would say that usually my starting point to making sure that you can have automated pieces, for me, it always starts with the people team or HR team, whatever you might call it, wherever you work. Because they are the people that know what the user is meant to have, what department they're in, what job title they have when they're starting and leaving. That's the principle that I put in place wherever I go. Usually it can be quite messy in some organizations where there might be comms about this person leaving on this date, but this person hasn't been informed and things like that. So there's like I guess a cultural process piece you need to put in place with your people team first before you can enable that part. Because once you've got that part built with your people team and an HRIS, that kind of flows through everything. So for as long as you've got like an IDP like Okta, and you have like mappings and licenses and apps and access linked together through a SCIM system, then for us at the moment, we have different user profiles. For example, a software engineer will start, they get these apps, flows down into Google, they get access to these drives, they get access to these calendars. Same with Asana, it will flow through, it will see that they've got that software engineer profile, they will have access to these workspaces, these projects, and so on. So for me, building a tech stack that runs itself, for me, starts with the people and the profiles and the mappings and making sure that all flows through with each other. But I've also worked places where there isn't a budget for an IDP and you have to build it manually, because having an IDP is expensive because, first of all, Okta or is it OneLogin, I think is another one, there's tools, but then also once you have a tool, then you have to push up tiers on all the other licensing that you have, because usually SSO is locked into a higher tier of another product. So there's been instances where I've had to do it without an IDP, and there's a lot of automation tools you can use to build all of that manually, but it's a lot more kind of overhead. But for me, having a tech stack that runs itself is, for me, people team driven rather than IT driven.
Love that. Love that. Hayden, we have a couple minutes left, and before I ask this last question, I would just want to take a second to thank you for taking the time to just have this conversation and share back with our audience and really helping us see how you've done things at multiple organizations in a different way that is helping you automate and giving you more time back in your day, especially with Eru being at the front and center there. Once you get device management running, in your case, Eru, what does that actually free you up to focus on next? What is the top of mind thing for you that you are now looking at building and working through beyond device management?
Yeah, I think for me in my role, I have a few hats. But in terms of, I guess, like a tech stack, technical part of my role, I guess more of a cultural piece as well. We're looking at kind of building like AI enablement across the business. So one thing that I think I was saying earlier around how fast AI and technological advancement is moving, a lot of people are at different levels within an organization. Some people are very skeptical. Some people don't want to use it. Some people are like super early adopters. So a big important piece of work that I've been able to focus on at the moment is how do I build a program internally which people can start having training, start looking at what tools they can use to optimize and help them with their roles. And kind of looking at around like how we're using AI ethically. Us as a business as well, we're an ethically based business in terms of what we're trying to do, helping energy companies get to net zero. So there's an ethical part of what we do as well. So it allows me to build those cultural pieces and empowerment pieces for our end users, which if I was spending all my time patching and doing manual stuff, then I wouldn't be able to do. So yeah, my big part at the moment is making sure that we're getting AI into the hands of our users in a way which feels productive and safe and ethical to them, and meeting them at the level that where they're at. Because I think that's probably the biggest challenge I'm seeing at the moment in the, at least in my space, is that AI is right here, and then you've got some people that are at different levels of where they would like to use it and how they would want to respond and things. My time at the moment is doing that.
Yeah. And for us older folks, when you say MySpace, you're referring to the space you work in, not the MySpace social stuff from back
Yeah.
in the day.
Yeah.
I caught on. I caught on. It's 2026. AI is definitely a big booming thing. And to your point, it sounds like that's what a lot of people are focused on this year. But more to come. Appreciate you all joining. Hayden, thank you again. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and week. Cheers.
Thanks for joining. See you later.